This is a real good question. I got to ask, when was Fleetwood Mac's peak and prime? I'd say the 75 through 87, especially when Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham came on board. Christian McVie was already there and Mick Fleetwood. But, obviously everything centers around the Rumors album, which was huge. And talk about a conflict of emotions, talking about all the affairs and the breakups and everything, which ironically, that was an album that had, in some part, had to inspire Marvin Gaye's "Hear My Dear" without thinking about it. But "Rumors" is probably like that ultimate pop breakup album. It sold a chunk. Go Your Own Way. Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow. They always had like you could hear the tension in Lindsey Buckingham's voice when he was singing, which they ended up letting him go, which was hard and sad to believe. But they had a really good they were able to have a real interesting melodic run. It's funny, like when I hear their 70s music, you had this acoustic guitar vibe with a heavy bass groove. Can't think of too many people that pull that off, and we even think about pulling it off, but it worked for what they did. And in the 80s, they went more synthesizer, obviously with Hold Me, and then you got to Big Love, which I liked a lot. Because I think Lindsey Buckingham was one of the most underrated cats. I think that cat can play, and he was bad. But that whole sound, you knew was the Fleetwood Mac style and vibe. And again, I remember seeing Rumors as a kid and just looking at the cover, but not understanding the totality of it, because that was grown folks' song. That's another thing about how artists have changed. People used to write from an adult perspective with such depth and mourning and meaning that, you couldn't possibly comprehend it um, just sight on scene. Now, interestingly enough, it'll be 50 years in a year from now when Rumors becomes 50 years, and I'll probably do a take on that track by track at that time. But I got asked about what their peak and prime was because I used to like to listen to their stuff. Um, got to listen to it back in the day. The whole Tusk album with the U.S. Marching Band. I liked all that. And I like their energy, their pacing. Kristen McVie, I always liked her tone. Um, you know, when I hear the melodicness of her voice and her keyboard playing, I always liked her texture. So rest in peace. She was nice with it, and they had a real interesting setup. It was crazy. You know, Funny thing, because when you hear about Fleetwood Mac, you think loud chemistry, but fuel and fire. It's like so much going on, so much going on, so many layers, but yet they had the musical marriage that made them one of the most successful acts ever. So, um, but yeah, I'd say like most acts that were big in the 70s. I mean, that was like their heyday because with technology in the 80s and productions and things changing. Yeah, they did have hits, but it wasn't like where they were, obviously from that particular era. Because to me, that's why I always think the 70s is the golden era because in the 70s, people were like musically were bringing it like, and you were actually the album oriented, just so much versatility. So, anyway, that's a good question. Fleetwood Mac's peak and prime, I would say, was I say they had their peak and their prime from 77 to about 87, and then they had some big records and everything they did. But anyway, let me know what you think. And I always taking comments and thoughts about different acts and what have you. Please hit like, subscribe, welcome thoughts, comments, and I do respond. Thank you. Wash your hands. Keep your mind clear. Watch out for another shit. If you like, hit that membership. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free. I'm out. Peace.